Hello and welcome to exercise session number 10, where we will complete the discussion of classes in Python, including the concept of inheritance. And I can see that again today there's a little bit more of a preamble to the exercises, so I think I'll discuss the example that's given here to begin with. So this example is about the concept of inheritance, and inheritance is something that sounds a little bit scary, but it's really just a fancy way of telling Python to copy-paste code, and I hope the example will explain that. So I think I'll make an example that resembles this, but with a few modifications, just to mix it up a little. So in order to do that, I think I'll go here to the exercise folder 10, and then let's make a new class that calls inherit.py, just to have some place to put our code. So the first thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to write an ordinary class. Like as I said, inheritance is really a fancy way of doing copy pasting. So the way you start copy pasting is you write a normal page you want to copy from, and then we'll get to the pasting part in a second. So the class that I want to write here, I'll call that for parrot. And what is this class? Well, it's a class that represents a parrot. And that's a bit artificial maybe, but I just want to make a class that can do some parody stuff. And what can a parrot do? Well, it can speak. So what we are going to do here is that we are going to make a class that we can train and teach some words, and then it can speak a random word. So the way we are going to go about that is that we are going to write an init method that we call whenever we create an instance of the parrot, and it sets this variable. Oops, I forgot to put in self here. And it initializes a variable called self.words, so the parrot has a little list of words that it knows about. Then we define a method called learn, and it's given a word to learn, and what it does is that it just basically memorizes the word by appending it to this list. So we append it to to our words variable like this, and then we have the method that's really the focus here, speak. And when we ask the parrot to speak, it just selects a random word and speaks and squawks it out. So it doesn't take any input arguments, but what it should do instead is that it should randomly select an element from this list. So we'll just do it like this. We'll have a little thing in the beginning just to indicate that it's a parrot speaking, and I think. So random element from a list, I think we saw that a couple of weeks ago. It was something like we import the random model, and then I think there was a random.sample, yes, and that's just given a list, so we give it this list of words. Okay, so that gives us a parrot, and I'm just going to experiment a little with this code by inserting a breakpoint and running the script so we can create a parrot instance and see how it works. So now the debugger has stopped here. That means that I have read in the definition of my parrot class, and what I can do now is that I can say Polly, let's call it Polly, is a parrot like this. And let's just check what the words variable is. It's empty, so that's not very fun. So let's train Polly to say a word like sugar, and now we can call poly.speak. Oops, that didn't work. It apparently needs a variable k. Let's just check this so we can see we have a little bit of a problem in this code. So let's do like this. Also, we need to select this sample function returns a list. I seem to actually remember that it did that, so we just select the first element of the list and put it in here. And then I also just realized that maybe I have a small bug, because maybe it's a good idea that that the parrot knows at least one word to begin with. So maybe what we do here is, yeah, we just say squawk, right? That's what the parrot knows from the store. Okay, so I'll just restart the debugger with these changes, and now I think we have a functioning parent class. So let's test it again. Polly is a parrot, and now Polly knows one word, squawk, and when we ask Polly to speak, it'll select a random word from that list, and that's just squawk. But we can also teach Polly a word, so maybe sugar again, and now Polly.speak will select randomly between the two words. Okay, so that's fine. Now let's imagine that we want to build another parrot, and the other parrot is similar to our original parrot. Build a new parrot, and this is a forgetful parrot. Only know the last word we told it. So it should function exactly like the parrot class, but it should have the property that when we teach it a new word, it only knows, it forgets the other word it knows. So one way of doing that is copy paste. We take this class definition and we paste it, and we call this forgetful parrot like this. And then we go in and we see, okay, so which of these things do we need when we implement the forgetful parrot? But whenever we copy paste in Python, that's let's just try to do it. Let's just try to do it for fun. So we need this one, that's fine. I think this one is fine, but then this one needs to be changed. So we need here, in order to forget whatever it knew beforehand, we can reset this word variable. So we can just set it to a list with only one word, like this. And now we have a forgetful parrot. So let me just use that. Let's call it fpoly because it's forgetful. And now let's tell it to speak. And we teach it a word like sugar. And now if we tell it to speak a couple of more times, it's going to print out sugar a couple of times. Okay, let's just check that that works as we intended to do. All right, so that seems to work. But the problem is that we duplicated code here, right? I have a parrot and a forgetful parrot, and they are pretty much the same. Like, never mind that if I wanted to implement the forgetful parrot from the ground up, maybe I wouldn't store the words as a list. I would just store it as a single word. But this is a valid way of implementing it. That's the point. But we don't like this aspect that it has duplicated code. So what we would essentially want to do is that we want to say forgetful parrot, take the parrot class and only substitute the learn method, right? That's what we want to do. We want to keep this, replace this with something new, because that's what happened. And Python allows us to do that with what's called class inheritance. So if I write this syntax, so it's like a function call, but it's not a function call because it's a class. This is inheritance. Then what I can actually do is I can remove this, and I can move this, and it's now equivalent to what I had before. Because when Python encounters this syntax, what you should imagine it does is that it behind the scene take all the methods here and then look at which methods are defined in the forgetful parrot class and copy other methods into the parrot class. That was a stupid way of explaining it. But basically what it means that is take this method because it's not defined here, and it plonks it in here, like it just copy pastes in, and it takes this method because it's not defined in here, and it copy pastes it in, but it doesn't copy paste in this method because it's already implemented here. That's also called that it's being overwritten, because it's like we want to copy paste everything in here, but we want to override the learn method, and that's how class inheritance work. There is a few, like one other thing with the init method, but that's not really that important. This copy paste effect is what we're really after, and we can just verify that this works. Again, it works the same as before. And of course, this example, like the original parrot, still works. Like if I replaced forgetful parrot with regular poly, it would still randomize the word. It doesn't change the original class. So this technique looks a little bit silly with this example because it's just a parrot class with two methods that has a single line each. But it's a technique that can be very helpful in certain situations, and it's particularly used in when you're dealing with simulations and especially with machine learning. Then it's quite extensively used. So it's a really convenient technique to be aware of. Okay, I think that's all I have to say about the example, and then I'll end this video here, and we can get to solving the exercises and look at this technique in action.